Back when I seriously started working out, I used to love calisthenics. I thought it was a more superior form of exercise as compared to weightlifting, and I was right at that moment. But the longer I exercised, the more I started to see the disadvantages of calisthenics. Now I hardly ever opt for calisthenics. I almost exclusively do weightlifting. Here are 10 things wrong with calisthenics that made me focus more on weightlifting. Number 1. Hard to progressive overload. This is a barbell row. To do progressive overload on this exercise, you simply add more weight, ranging from 2 pounds, 5 pounds, 10, 12, 15, all the way to like 90 pounds. The weight increment options are very close together, making it easier to progressive overload. This is an Australian pull-up, basically the calisthenics equivalent of a barbell row. To apply progressive overload on this exercise, you simply increase the angle at which you're doing the pull-up. So maybe 150 degrees would be easy and 190 degrees would be very hard. So you simply change the angle between these two extremes. You eventually get to the one-arm version, which is a lot harder. Now tell me, which one of the two progressive overloads is easier to do and more measurable? You're crazy if you pick anything that isn't the weight increments. You see, a 5-pound increase for the barbell rows can be a sweet spot for progressive overload, while a 10-degree increase on Australian pull-ups isn't just hard to measure, it can be such a big jump that the exercise becomes too hard. Not to mention the fact that it can be hard to find the ideal platform where you can put your legs in order to get to the 170 to 190 degree range. Progressive overload is certainly easier with weight training, regardless of the exercise. Of course, I am aware that there are many ways to do progressive overload, such as decreasing rep speed, force reps, deep stretch pauses, and so on. These are complementary methods to the one best and easiest form of progressive overload. All the others are intermediate to advanced progressive overload methods that are usually used by people who have been in the gym for quite a long time, and increasing weight is not as effective on its own for them anymore. Let's look at another example. To progressive overload a front lever raise, you start with both legs tucked. Then you slowly untuck them as time goes on until you're doing a full lever raise. How much harder is it to quantify and actually do this as compared to just increasing a quantifiable amount of weight when you want to make lat prayers harder? Calisthenics is just more complicated when it comes to this. Number 2. Limited exercises. One thing that makes exercise nice is having a lot of exercises to choose from. Some you hate, some you love. So you often opt for the ones that you love and leave out the others. The sweetness of options. Calisthenics also has this quality, but to a much lesser extent as compared to weightlifting. Take the legs for example. How many weightlifting exercises can you think of that train the legs? I can list 10 right now. Barbell back squats, lunges, hack squats, Smith machine squats, leg press, those two funny inner and outer thighs exercises, leg extensions, deadlifts, hamstring curls, goblet squat, and there's more that I won't even mention right now. Now let's list calisthenics leg exercises. Free weight squats, free weight lunges, pistol squats, sissy squats, floor hamstring curls, Nordic hamstring curls, opposite of the Nordic curl, and the list pretty much ends there. I can't even think of any other effective exercises that are worth doing. While I could name 10 effective weightlifting exercises that can allow you to reach failure at an ideal rep range while also allowing for good progressive overload. Just like most other calisthenics exercises, these exercises for legs have other further disadvantages as well, which leads us to problem number 3. They are difficult to reach the 3 to 0 RIR rep range. If you don't know what RIR is, it means reps in reserve. 3 RIR means you have 3 reps left before you reach failure. 1 RIR means you have 1 rep left before failure. Ideally, you would want to reach 0 to 3 RIR within the 8 to 20 rep range because it is the ideal rep range for muscle building. Calisthenics makes this difficult to do. I can do 50 proper push-ups in one go, and that alone makes the exercise less effective for me. RIR is something you estimate, and the more experienced a lifter you are, the more accurate you are at estimating it. Having done 47 reps of push-ups, however, makes estimating your RIR very difficult. The crazy pump you have at this point makes it really hard to tell whether you're close to failure or you're not, and one muscle group may reach failure before another. If I use proper rest periods of 2 to 4 minutes with a plan to do 3 sets of push-ups, I'm probably doing 20 plus push-ups in each set, making making rating my RIR more difficult. This is also true for exercises such as free weight squats. This is usually not an issue with exercises like pull-ups, however, because they are super hard to do and few people can consistently get more than 15 reps. This means that they are easier to estimate the RIR. However, you will notice that advanced calisthenics guys do weighted pull-ups where they use external weight to increase the difficulty of the pull-up. This basically becomes weightlifting, which further proves my point. Number 4, hard to build a balanced physique. Let's be honest, calisthenics guys almost always have small legs. I'm talking guys who exclusively train using calisthenics. Street style calisthenics guys actually like small legs because that allows them to do things like front levers more easily. But let's be honest, small legs are not aesthetic. It's always better to have a balanced physique. Even if you try to build your legs, you can't really get past a certain point because the leg exercises can't build that much muscle. They have a very low muscle building capacity. So unless you're blessed with some great lower body genetics, yeah, you're not building big leg muscles with calisthenics. It isn't just with the legs. Calisthenics makes it harder to grow your chest and shoulders. Most calisthenics guys will have a large back because that involves one of the few calisthenics exercises that are optimal for muscle growth. Everything else will be underdeveloped in comparison. Number 5, calisthenics gets boring. This one is the most subjective problem I have with calisthenics. For me, it was fun when everything was still new. We'd also work out as a group, so that made everything a lot more enjoyable. As time went on, it began to get a lot more boring, especially as our numbers decreased and it was only me and one other guy still doing calisthenics. That, coupled with the fact that the exercise variety is low, I got really bored with calisthenics and started to focus more on weightlifting, which I consider to be more fun. I mean, think about it. With weightlifting, you can do drop sets, pyramid sets, 1-rep maxes, powerlifting. These are exciting things that can push you to new heights and make you enjoy your time at the gym. Calisthenics is not that variable. That's why I think it easily gets boring in comparison to weightlifting. Number 6, calisthenics has a lower muscle building capacity. This isn't an absolutely bad thing, but it is bad for those who want to build a lot of muscle mass. Calisthenics lacks the qualities that allow you to build a maximal amount of muscle, most of which I've already talked about. If you want a more athletic body, calisthenics is great for this, even though it still isn't as good as weightlifting when it comes to building the most aesthetic body. When you want to dive into the realms of mass monsters, however, yeah, calisthenics isn't gonna get you there. I think mass monster level is a stretch actually. Let's say the men's physique level. Only genetically gifted calisthenics athletes can get to this level, but they would only be in the lower tier of that category. So yeah, calisthenics doesn't build as much muscle as weightlifting, and in this case, that's a bad thing. Number 7, calisthenics makes it hard to isolate small muscle groups. This is a preacher curl, a very effective way to isolate the bicep muscle. This is a machine lateral raise, a very effective way to isolate the side delts. Calisthenics doesn't have as many isolation movements such as these. Unless maybe you use rings, then you're able to do more isolation movements, but even then, it's hard to isolate front delts or side delts or forearms. With weightlifting, you can easily isolate essentially any small muscle group with ease. That makes it better than calisthenics in that sense. Number 8, stability issues with certain exercises. A lot of advanced calisthenics workouts aren't stable, and that takes away from their potential to build muscle. Exercises like pistol squats, sissy squats, planche push-ups, handstand push-ups all lack the stability that a Smith machine squat, leg extension, machine press, and machine shoulder press has, for example. This takes away so much from their muscle building capabilities because a person has to focus on both the reps and staying stable. That's a bad thing because the closer you get to 0 RIR, the less you are able to focus on stability. That makes it very difficult to even get to 3 RIR with exercises such as these. As a result, they are not as effective at building muscle. Number 9, calisthenics can have access issues. On average, calisthenics parks have more access issues as compared to weightlifting. At least that's the case where I am from, and if they are there, they don't often have enough to get a proper workout in. There are more gyms than there are calisthenics parks, and yeah, you can argue that you can do calisthenics at home or buy rings and stuff like that, but calisthenics is best done outside. The park is obviously going to be outdoors, and you need something like a basketball hoop or a tree from which to hang your rings. What are you gonna do when it's super hot, super cold, or when it's raining? Can't work out, can you? How many of you can actually afford to have all this stuff installed indoors at home? I'm guessing not many. Gyms are much easier to access. There is a local gym in most places, and if there is bad weather, you can simply drive there and work out indoors. Weightlifting and weightlifting equipment is a lot more accessible in comparison comparison to calisthenics and calisthenics equipment. And finally, number 10, calisthenics lacks the gym vibe. I mentioned that part of what made calisthenics fun for me is the social aspect, how we used to work out as a group. When everyone left, my interest in calisthenics began to die out. You see, part of what makes working out fun is having that vibe around you. Having other people working out, the music, the big guy benching a lot of weight, the Instagram baddie filming an arm workout but only really showing her dump truck. Calisthenics also has these vibes, especially with the guys who do street style. But in comparison to a weightlifting gym, calisthenics doesn't have that vibe to the same level. A weightlifting gym is often indoors, meaning you probably have surround sound music. The gym is hardly ever completely empty, while calisthenics parks can look deserted at times, especially during bad weather. To me, this makes weightlifting better because the vibe is often better, and this makes the gym a fun place to be. So there you have it. These are the 10 things that I find wrong with calisthenics and the reason why I stopped focusing on it. Now, I'm not gonna act like calisthenics is a bad form of exercise, because that would be far from the truth. I can actually safely say calisthenics is a healthier form of exercise than weightlifting, with all things considered. There are many great things about calisthenics, and I'm gonna make a video about that soon. It will be linked somewhere here, so be on the lookout for it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll see you in the next video, and remember, stay natural.